Ladies and gentlemen, Geri Petito.
I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Geri Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Loves the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.
When you don't know just what to do,
Just what to do, just what to do.
if what you're feeling is really true,
Is it really true? Is it really true?
just keep your ideas safe and sound.
Safe and sound, safe and sound.
That's exactly how change is found.
Change is found, change is found. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Geri Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Loves the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geri Petito Show. Everyone and anyone who knows me knows I am the author of I'm Not an Addict, I'm Just an Ass. I'd rather be a smartass than a dumbass. Because, guys, over 32 years ago, I was a dumbass. But today, 32 years later, through the grace of God, I can honestly say now I'm a smartass. And yes, the word ass is in the Bible at least 40 times, and it means donkey, and that's what I was. I'm saying all that to say this. I want everybody out there who's struggling with health issues or addiction to please reach out. I'm a nutritional health coach. I'm also a recovery coach. All my services to you are free. Okay? I don't want anyone out there to feel alone. Someone is listening, okay? If you think my book can help you, which I sure do, you can go right to Simon & Schuster's bookstore, Archway Publishing, BAM, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and you can go to my website, www.geripetito.com. And guys, if you truly, truly, truly cannot afford my book, please, please reach out to me about that as well. Okay? Thank you. So I want to just give a shout out to a few of my sponsors. Okay. First of all, Paula Ann, Ablaze Entertainment and Freedom Rings Festival, helping survivors of human trafficking to live a life of normalcy. Okay, www.freedomringsfestival.com, and the Geri Petito Show is also one of her sponsors. Guys, please reach out, please check her out, because what they're doing for these people is amazing, okay? And then, of course, I've got Michael D'Amore, singer, songwriter, performer, entertainer. You can go to www.michaeldamore.com, and you can purchase his songs there. You know, I'm an oldies girl, okay? Everyone who knows me, I always say I was born too late, okay? I'm an oldies, doo-wop, and Elvis girl. Elvis is my guy, okay? So nobody tops Elvis. But I always say about Michael D'Amore, listen, here's Elvis and here's Michael, all right? And, you know, I moved Michael down a hair for Carter Rubin. He was the youngest winner of The Voice. Okay, and his grandfather, Rick Mango, was with Jay and the Americans, okay? So, and we're all family and friends, guys. So when I did it, Michael D'Amore loved it. I said, all right, Michael, I always said you were right under Elvis, but now you moved down, and Carter's there, and then Michael. Check out Michael. When I tell you off the charts, you will never hear anyone like him except for Elvis and Carter, okay, guys? Now, Michael Zandman. Singer, entertainer, performer, www.mzandman.com. He is a cool cat. He's a great singer. He's a great entertainer. And I had the honor of emceeing for them at Led East this past year. Michael Zandman opened up for Michael D'Amore. Okay, so really cool, great entertainment. Okay, so I want to thank everybody for listening to my nonsense. So guys, I have a great guest with me. We just did an interview, so please check that one out as well. We did an interview on one of his books about JFK, and I'm going to have him properly tell you his name. Tom, please introduce yourself to everyone. I don't hear you, Tom. Hold on. There we go. Go ahead, Tom. You're good.
Okay. Hi, Geri. I'm Tom Aviatabile. You mentioned one of your sponsors. This is a #1 bestseller, The Devil's Quota, which is about human trafficking. And I've hooked up with a couple of other people, so maybe at some point we'll have a conversation about that.
Yes. Okay, we will. Absolutely. I've interviewed a lot of people, and I just want to share this real quick because I didn't know that about you as well. But Ruben, my producer here, him and I went a year ago this week to Yuma, Arizona, to all the borders. We covered the stories there with the Border Patrol and the Sheriff Department and a man named Anthony Hudson, who was going to be running for U.S. President. He's now going to be running for Congress, U.S. Congress. We were invited and we covered the stories there. We spent 5 days, and what we saw about human trafficking was off the charts. We'll talk about all this. Maybe we could do something together.
That'd be great.
Okay? All right, so now, Tom, you wear so many freaking hats, man. You're incredible. Please tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Come on.
Well, I took maximum advantage of being a city kid, and principally the subways. So when I was in junior high, I built a science project. It was a computer in an attaché case in 1967, when they didn't even have computers, that didn't fill the size of a whole floor of an office building. And that got me a little bit of notoriety. And I used to cut school and I go downtown, I try and sell my computer. One day I tried to sell it to NBC in the 30 Rock, and I got a job working at NBC News at 14 years old.
Oh my gosh. Okay, continue.
And I don't know if anybody remembers these names: Chet Huntley, Barbara Walters, Hugh Downs, Frank McGee, Frank Blair. These are all the people I worked with in the morning before I went to school. So my life started out at a very high accelerated rate. My father was a truck driver. My mother was a housekeeper. She never left her house. And nobody in my family had gone to college. And I was making, for a weekend worth of work, I was making more money than my father, who was a Teamster truck driver.
Okay.
And I was 15.
Okay.
So my life moved on from there. I got into television, got into radio, got into recording studios, started writing screenplays, started writing books. I now have 10 books published. I got 5 #1 bestsellers. But my real handle, for 40 years, I was creative director of an advertising agency in Manhattan. And through that time, I also just became a kind of a consultant for various companies. One of the companies I was consultant for was a company called Bellcore, which was one of the baby bells. That got me to the House Committee on Science, Space, and Technology, as I was a consultant for something new and radical that nobody ever heard of called HDTV, and on and on and on. So my life has been varied. I've had my many hats, as you point out, and many feet in many ponds. So all of this collectively has given me the opportunity to write, connect with people, hopefully do some good in some other areas. So it's kind of, my through line, if I had a through line, it's creative solutions to marketing challenges. That's pretty much served me well, whether it's a client or a foundation or just somebody in need. You kind of come up with something creative, and thank God I've always come up with something. I was born thinking that God gave me 20 great ideas, and this is my 19th. Whatever it was, whenever it was in my life,
I love that. Yes.
One more.
Well, I'm going to let you continue, but we got to give a shout out to Al Contrara because he connected us. Of the Mystics, baby. What are you kidding me? Come on, the original Mystics. Al Contrara, we love you, and thank you for this.
And Al and I share a love and possibly, in my case, a gift for music. We both perform. And I was with a number of oldies doo-wops groups growing up. I've had a wonderful history in music as well. I'm still performing. In fact,
who were you with? Anyone I would know?
I have 4 bands. I have the Stragglers, which on March 9th will be at the Calandras Cucina Italiana on Route 46 in Fairfield. We're a good time rock and roll kind of band. A little bit of oldies, a little bit of newies, a little bit in between. Great band. I work with Mark, Ted, and Tom. Or they say Mark, Ted, and sometimes Tom. And that's kind of a Great American Songbook, oldies, Latin. We perform every other Friday at that same place, Cucina Calandra on Route 46. I'm with a duo called The Outcasts, which is sometimes a trio with a marvelous, marvelous keyboardist and singer named Christine Rita. And I'm with a 17-piece band that we play once a year called the Main Event. So music covers the waterfront for me, and it's my poker night. It's my golf game. It's, I just do that instead of all those other things. Music has been just a wonderful thing to share with people, and I've been blessed to share it 7, 8, 10 times a month.
Well, you mentioned poker. I'm a poker dealer. I owned a poker league in Mercer County called Midnight Owl Poker for about 10 years, pre-COVID.
Whoa!
We were in all the different bars and restaurants, and they won gift certificates to the restaurants, as gifts. It was amazing. But
That's a great idea.
yeah. So
What'd you do, like Texas Hold'em or
that's
something?
exactly what we did. Yes.
I love that.
So, so when you play, raise with Jack 4.
I love it.
And if you look it up, I didn't know this. I won one of the very first tournaments at Parks Casino back then, in Philly with Jack 4.
Really?
And all my gear, my hats, I love the logo thing, was Jack 4 baby, Jack 4, Midnight Owl Poker, Jack 4 baby. Before I knew what I'm going to tell you, I did a poker show with PANJ Radio. They wanted me to do a poker show, and they looked this up and told me there is something out there called the Jack 4 effect, and it shows an iron with the Jack on it and the 4 going. Like something ridiculous, like 8 times out of 10, if a Jack flops, a 4 will come. You're going to start
Wow.
seeing it. People all over the world. I even went to Australia with the poker league for a $100,000 game. We joined forces, my friends there.
Wow.
But now everywhere, people know Jack 4 baby. It's
I love it.
crazy, but you got to check it out. So anyway,
You just added another thing in my brain.
Okay. So
Thank
now
you.
I want to ask you something about your music.
Yes.
Growing up, okay, who did you love?
Oh, well, my mom played piano, and
Okay.
my uncles played guitars and saxophones, and my aunt sang. We had a musical Italian family in the Bronx.
Okay.
And my mother, God bless her, she saved money in a mayonnaise jar on top of the refrigerator.
Yep.
And we went to Palumbo's Music Academy on Gun Hill Road, and we bought a set of drums, and she put up with me banging on those drums in a little apartment in the Bronx. I obviously I grew up. The Beatles had come in. Prior to that, it was Dion and the Belmonts.
Okay, yeah.
My first record I ever had was Louis Prima
Oh.
doing Zaringa-Zinga-Zing, the saxophone,
Yes!
the sax, all that. And then Maria, the waitress at the pizzeria. It was a 78. It was a 78 record. I wore it out. And then we got a stereo. And my first real album was Miles Davis, Kind of Blue.
So beautiful, yes.
And that took me off. Then I had Ella Fitzgerald,
Okay.
1959 concert in Berlin. Great album. I recommend anybody when she sang a new song that just came out called Mac the Knife. And she got the words wrong, and that allowed her to scat. And it is the most brilliant performance of Mac the Knife.
Okay, hold on. I have to ask you because I never knew that. So that's why she did what she did with that, because she got the words wrong?
Well, she was a scat
Yeah.
major from way back.
Yeah.
But she said she's singing something about cash.
Yeah.
She
And
can't
then so
remember
she
the
did
words. So
that.
then she just scattered. And then
That's
She
amazing.
makes up lyrics at the end.
It's amazing.
Fit perfectly her mistake. I mean, I highly recommend Ella in Berlin, 1959. She played with a little group, and it's some great songs on there.
Amazing.
And she was, one of my all-time favorites. Ella Fitzgerald, God bless her. She was amazing. And then, I went on to rock and roll, and I had bands and stuff, and traveled across the country in a band. I was on the road. Did a show group. We did a show, Vegas, Los Angeles, and hundreds of war stories from that. Like Al has great war stories that he put in his book. Okay, the Hushabye, the mob, the music, and
Yes.
yeah, great book. I highly recommend that to anybody. And he did the audio book. So you can hear Al actually reading his own book, which is a real blast, because we know some of the same people.
Real quick about Al. So, and I don't mind saying my age. I was born in 61. I'll be 63. And the reason I'm saying that is because, again, I feel like I was born too late because I love all the oldies and music,
Sure.
Elvis and doo-wop, right? But
Yeah.
growing up as a fan, we only think, oh my gosh, it must have been amazing back then, and everybody was happy, everybody loved each other. Oh my God, they're rich, they got paid so much, right? He was the
Right.
first one. When I interviewed him about his book in studio years ago, talking about the mob being involved, no one got paid, everybody was shysters, everybody cutthroat, the music industry. I was like,
Sure.
it was the first time I ever really knew any of that.
Yeah,
Crazy.
it was Hushabye, the mob, the music, and the Mystics, the mob, and the music.
Yeah,
I may be getting that right or wrong, but yeah, incredible book. I
Incredible.
recommend anybody who loves
Yeah.
oldies or loves that period of time.
Yeah. So now let's talk about our topic here today. So
Yes.
righting a terrible wrong. Let's talk about this.
Okay. This came to me last year in the form of this book, which I'm going to hold up right now. This book is called Pope Pius and World War II, Pope Pius XII and World War II, The Documented Truth. This book came to me as, I guess, a message from God, is all I can tell you, as many good things come to people. And sometimes we don't realize that. So I read the book, and I'm blown away. I had, and I believe maybe 90% of the world, when the name Pope Pius XII comes up, if it comes up, and if anybody knows anything about Pope Pius XII, largely they kind of remember that he was somehow connected to Hitler. And if they really think they know, they'll tell you he was Hitler's Pope, which was the name of many books and many things that came out, essentially saying that he was in league with Hitler and he was kind of okay with the Holocaust. And that's pretty much common wisdom, okay? It's out there. And then I read this book, and it blew me away. It blew me away because it's not just somebody's opinion. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's based on 76,000 pages of exculpating evidence that not only wasn't he Hitler's Pope, Hitler wanted him dead. And the reason was that Pope Pius, through his intervention, through the Catholic Church and the people of Italy, saved almost 1 million Jews from the Holocaust, right under Hitler's nose.
I didn't know that. Continue.
Nobody really knows that. Now, this is not a book written by Catholic zealots. In fact, the gentleman that wrote this book is Jewish, although he holds a ranking in the Order of St. Gregory, a Catholic Knights organization. He is a knight in the Order of St. Gregory, and he was elevated by 3 popes, Jewish. He's the 7th person of the Jewish faith to reach such a high level in the Catholic Church. He was on a first-name basis with 2 popes and knows the other one at arm's length. He was, again, elevated by them. He and his wife, she's a dame, he's a sir. His name is Geri Krupp. Her name is Meredith Krupp.
Question real quick. Does that mean he believes in Jesus? A Jew for Jesus?
No.
Okay, continue.
I mean, I've never had that conversation with him,
Okay.
but it's never come up. He's still Jewish.
Yeah.
Right. So but what he is, and what this is amazing, he's a seeker of truth. And from 2006 to when I got the book last year, one of his main missions was to clarify, resurrect the reputation of Pope Pius XII, who has been painted with such a bad and broad brush that I say Pope Pius died in 1958, but he was assassinated in 1964. What does that mean?
Yeah,
He
what
died
is
in 1958 a hero.
that? Okay.
In 1964, a play opened on Broadway. And that play was called The Deputy. And that play cast him forever as Hitler's Pope 6 years after his death. Why did that happen?
Yeah.
Well, that play was written by the KGB. Oh, wait, Tom, come on, the KGB, you're just picking that out of the air? No. Khrushchev, who was running the Soviet Union around 1960, 61, 62, had a problem. none of the people in Poland, Czechoslovakia, and the outlying regions of the Soviet Union were embracing this whole idea of communism. Because one of the tenets of communism is there is no religion. And these Catholics would not give up their faith. And it was really starting to bug him. So he decided he wanted to kick the Catholic Church in the slats. Well, he thought about it, and he knew something that no one in the world knew, except Stalin, a Russian colonel, and himself, which was that during World War II, Hitler released an order that ordered his men to kidnap and kill Pope Pius XII.
Okay.
Why? Because Hitler knew, or had suspicions actually, that he was saving Jews. And Hitler's final solution was to totally eliminate Jews from the face of the earth. And if you remember correctly, he got there about 6 million, okay? At that time, in Europe, there was no John Wayne coming to save the day. The Vatican was in Italy. Italy was fascist under Mussolini, who was Hitler's hero. Hitler emulated Mussolini, believe it or not, at least in his early writings. So if you were living in Europe, the Germans had France, they had Poland, they had Czechoslovakia, they were all around you. They were the winners. Those guys were there. And there was no army, there was nobody coming to the rescue. And yet the Pope saw this, and he saw that this is wrong, number one. We're killing people, that's wrong. But he couldn't speak out. Why? Well, he had 1 billion people as Catholics in churches, and he had priests, and he had nuns, and he had clergy. And had he come out strongly against Hitler, vociferously, Hitler would have taken it out on all of the infrastructure of the Catholic Church. He didn't do that.
Can I share something with you? Because I don't want to
Sure.
forget. You're blowing my mind here with what you're saying. So I went to Russia in the 80s, okay, on a hell tour. I was there for a month. And one of our we weren't allowed to talk to the Russians. Okay, the only Russian we were allowed to talk to was our tour guide. She was amazing. Now, we had a free day. And in this park across from where we were staying in our hotel was one of the biggest Catholic churches there. And it had a ton of steps going up. So we were told, and I have a photo of this, we were told that the only people that were allowed to even go into the churches were old people because they weren't a threat to them. Outside of every church, they had guards with guns. I have a photo of the guard up there with the gun with a little old lady, and he let her in.
Right.
Other than that, no one was allowed to go to church.
And that's because
Yep.
but when you adhere to communism, there can be no higher authority than the state.
Yep.
And any religion, any belief in God would give people hope. And if you have a choice between an oppressive government
Yep. And hope.
and a spiritual sense of hope, you're going to take hope because the government is failing you right and left, and they knew that, okay? So he had to give the Catholic Church a black eye. He knew that the world did not know that Hitler wanted the Pope dead. So actually Khrushchev's words were, "A dead Pope cannot refute lies." So he had the KGB write a play. The original iteration of that play was something like 8 hours long, and it had 65 pages of copious historical notes. Khrushchev saw it and said, we got somebody who really knows how to write here. So they picked some kid who worked in a publishing company, he was an assistant, and he went over the play, got it down to about 2 hours. When the play opened in the outer regions of the Soviet Union, Poland, Czechoslovakia, a play designed to tell Catholics, get off your high horse because you're defending a church that is got blood on its hands. The people actually came down from the stage and started punching out the actors because they knew it was a lie, because they knew who Pope Pius was. They lived it. Parenthetical note, and Gary says this all the time. All the people who claimed that Hitler was Hitler's Pope weren't alive or conscious during the war. This is all post-history rewritten by the Russians. Now, so the play opens, and again, the people in the audience come down and start punching out the actors. The play makes it to England in late '63, does well in England, and comes to Broadway on February 26, 1964. 1964. And it opens full gala Broadway premiere. 3 days before the premiere, there were articles in the Journal American, the New York Telegraph, the New York Daily News, the New York Post, the New York Times. There were op-ed saying, "Let the play speak for itself." Everybody knew this play was coming, and everybody knew it was controversial. But to that end, the New York City Police Department had 10 plainclothes detectives in the theater to protect the actors. Outside, the neo-Nazis were protesting, saying this whole Holocaust thing never happened.
Right.
The Catholic League was protesting, saying this is blasphemous of a good man. And there was another group protesting, which we haven't found out who they are yet. There were cops mounted on horseback to control the crowds. It was pandemonium. Inside the theater was a largely Jewish audience. It just worked for them, made sense to them. So that became the character assassination of Pope Pius. And from that point forward, he was forever branded as being Hitler's Pope. In 2002, Costas Gravas did a motion picture, which was an adaptation of the stage play. Another dagger in this man's reputation. Gary Krupp, in 2006, was a believer that he was Hitler's Pope. And somebody must have said something to him, or the timing was right with a message song, and he started to investigate. Brilliant man. Thousands of archival searches, papers, digging into not only the Vatican files, which he had access to as a knight, and somebody who is on first name basis with most of the people in the Vatican. Okay. The Franciscan archives, the Dominican Sisters archives, all of these archives that were kept all around the world, plus government files, and, as in the book, contemporaneous testimonials from people during that time, who attest to, yes, this nun dressed my mother as a nun, and we walk right by the Germans. And there's an anecdotal story that I love and would make most people at the Vatican cringe. But I was told that the Pope Pius was the papal nuncio to Berlin in the 1920s. A nuncio is the ambassador, so he was the Vatican ambassador to Berlin. And as such, he was dealing with the remnants of the Hindenburg administration, which had lost at the end of World War I. It was the time of great inflation. It was a horrible time because of the world had punished Germany. Inflation was through the Weimar Republic. I don't know if you remember any of that. Okay. Anyway, Pius was, he was Eugenio Pacelli then. He was Bishop Eugenio Pacelli. And he started writing all these horrible things as far as Hitler was concerned about socialism. And most people don't know this, but Nazi stands for the National Socialist Workers' Party.
I didn't know that. Thank you.
Nobody knows it, okay?
But where's the Z in any of that?
It's in German. It's in German.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, they figured, hey, we're in Germany, we should speak like Germans.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. I didn't know that. Wow, all right.
Yeah, no, it's the National Socialist Workers' Party was what it was. But it had, it couldn't have a church. Couldn't have people that have any totalitarian government works on the prospect that you must bow and you must bend and genuflect your knee to us and not some god, okay? So they had the same problems. In fact, you can read about Hitler going into the churches and replacing the crucifix with pictures of himself.
Yep.
So, rolling forward, Pacelli left Germany once and for all and for good in 1927, never to return.
Okay.
In 1933, Hitler rose to power.
Okay.
So they never met, except Hitler hated him for his anti-socialist doctrines that he wrote, essays, certain op-eds and things like that. So Hitler already knew that he was not somebody that, agreed with his socialist view of the world. So when Mein Kampf came out, there was a cardinal in the Vatican who wrote a love letter to Mein Kampf. And Hitler said, now, this is my kind of guy. I like this guy. Okay? Hold that thought. So he becomes the Pope in 1939 and takes Pope Pius XII. Once he's in, he realizes that war is threatening in Europe. Everything, is happening. War happens. There were Jews in Rome. There were Jews in Italy, Milan. And if he comes out, and first of all, the Pope has 450 ceremonial guards that have spears, pikes. Hitler had Panzer tanks, Luftwaffe, Stuka bombers, and shock troops. Blitzkrieg. What are you going to do with 450 guys with sticks? But this is the beauty of Eugenio Pacelli. He was a diplomat. So he knew the power of words, and he also knew how the gears of international diplomacy work. Here's a side story. He finds out that one of the secretaries working at the Vatican, and I may be muddling this story, but here's the sense of it. He finds out that she's having an affair with the Portuguese ambassador to Rome. And she is called to his office. Now you can imagine this woman, this pious woman working at the Vatican. The rumor is the Pope knows you're doing sin, whatever, with this guy from Portugal. And you can only imagine her heart in her throat as the Holy Father calls her into the office. And he looks at her and he says, take this list home tonight and have your boyfriend cut visas under these names. Those names were what became referred to as non-Christian Aryans. Those names, at the same time, there were nuns writing baptismal certificates for. And the Jews were given those baptismal certificates and the visas to Portugal. And he saved untold numbers of Jews with this little diplomatic trick. So he was that kind of guy. He was a thinker.
Okay.
He never left the Vatican. He never picked up a machine gun. He was a pacifist. And yet he's one of the few, I'll say the only, but I have to say one of the few because it's not complete, people to ever outsmart Hitler, who at that point controlled the world around him.
Okay.
He defied him and did it in a way that by and large protected the Catholic Church. And not only that, all the clergy of the Catholic Church and all the parishioners of the Catholic Church. Because Hitler had no compulsion about killing anybody that got in his way. And there are legion stories about that. So here you have a guy working an underground railroad, if you will, a secret process. And to prove the point, in his 1943 Christmas address from the balcony of the Vatican City, he had one little paragraph, that said something inane, innocuous, like, the world should know what's going on in Germany and the occupied, countries. It's not really right and shouldn't be happening. That's all he said. When Hitler heard this, he got infuriated and he had 60 priests. Oh, here's a side note. During World War II, I have been told, the largest seminary was at Dachau. And I said, Dachau, the city? And they said, no, Dachau prison camp. There were 6,000 priests, prisoner, in a German concentration camp. And when the Pope just mentioned that little stupid paragraph in a whole, thing, Hitler had 60 priests killed, drawn and quartered.
Wow.
Okay? He wasn't fooling around. The French and the British, I think, took that excerpt from the Pope's speech and they made leaflets up and they bombed the outer regions of the Third Reich with pamphlets. of the Pope's speech. Okay? So the idea being that here's a person that was totally, completely maligned, not while he was alive. He died a hero. When he died in 1958, okay, everybody loved him. There was no talk about Hitler or anything. And interestingly enough, in 1963, and I have it, I can show it to you, or anybody wants to see it, there was Biography with Mike Wallace, The Life and Times of Eugenio Pacelli, also known as Pope Pius XII. And it's a 1-hour program done in black and white, that day, 1963.
Wow.
And the only thing that they had, there was one issue in the papacy of Pope Pius XII. It was the one scandal of his papacy. And you know what it was? He had claimed that he had pneumonia or some flu or something, he was really out of it. He claimed that Jesus Christ came to his bedside and talked to him.
Why is that a bad thing? It could have happened.
That's it. That's all there was. Whether you think he's crazy or maybe, to me, it's like, yeah, if Jesus got anybody's address, it's the Pope's,
I need to comment. I just have to. So, Jesus came to my bedside as well.
There you go.
And my mouth to God's ears. I didn't know. It was before I started doing drugs. I was young. I was sleeping. I was woken up, and I see Jesus the way we see him. And
Wow.
I hear everything's going to be okay. And
Wow.
I'm sitting up, and I'm rubbing my eyes, and I'm like, is that you, God? I didn't know the turn of events that was going to happen after that. And he's never left my side. So for you to say that to me, I'm like, I believe it. I believe it.
There you go. There you go. So in that whole biography, there was not one mention of Hitler.
Okay?
Okay? He dies in 1958.
Wow.
What then happened was the play comes out. It ran for 313 performances, starred David Carradine, was nominated for 3 Tony Awards, won 1. And the entire world grasped the idea that he was Hitler's Pope. In June of 2022, David Kurtzer wrote a book. Guess what? The book said, Pope Pius, he was Hitler's Pope. And the world went, whoa, again? Yes, wow, that's amazing. And he got on all the TV shows. He got on all the news shows. He got on everywhere because of the certain narrative that says, if you're kicking religion in the slats, we love it. Meanwhile, in that same time, since Gary started writing the book, there's been no more than 20 books published, like Gary's, that exonerate the Pope with proof. Gary's is the most far-reaching, with the 76,000 pages of backup evidence, which was available on the internet through the Pave the Way Foundation, which is Gary's foundation. Pave the Way is a good works organization that just does good. They're not religious in any way, shape, or form, but he does say, and I love him for this, he says, we don't subscribe to religion, we work for the boss. They do things that are right and correct from a position of God, as opposed to Jewish, Catholic, Muslim.
So do I, yes. That's how I feel, yes.
Well, then you're a kindred spirit with him. So, and I found this out real fast because I had a personal affinity for Pope Pius. And my own personal reason for being involved in this is because my Uncle Jimmy, who I love dearly, my Uncle Jimmy, was in World War II. And when the war was over, he found himself in Rome. He's an Italian kid from the Bronx, right? And he's sitting on the Spanish Steps in Rome, and a priest approaches him and says, my son, would you like to meet the Holy Father? And he said, sure. So he and a bunch of Allied soldiers were invited to the Vatican to meet the Pope. The Pope wanted to thank them, Pope Pius wanted to thank them for their sacrifice and for their effort in liberating Europe and Italy, okay? And it was a very nice ceremony. He shook the Pope's hand. When my Uncle Jimmy got back to the Bronx and the news got out that he shook the Pope's hand, the old lady started showing up with sick babies. Can you put your hand on the baby?
Aw.
My Uncle Jimmy was one of the most sweetest people on the planet, funny. Never heard him, I'm sure he did, but I never heard a negative word out of him about anybody. He lived to 101.
That's beautiful.
He was going to OTB every day. My cousin George dedicated his life to his parents, both my Aunt Sophie and my Uncle Jimmy. Took him to OTB every day. He bet with the ponies. At his 100th birthday, I played with my band. He danced with all the pretty girls at 100.
So cool. My Nonna lived to 100. I love it.
And let me tell you something. I believe Uncle Jimmy was in the cards for at least $105, at least 105, but COVID got him.
Okay.
If it wasn't for COVID, I believe he'd still be with us. Did he live a charmed life because he met the Pope? I like to think so. So I had an affinity for Pope Pius. And I really hadn't heard of the whole Hitler thing, because that's all I knew of Pope Pius. When I got out into the world and I started hearing what people were saying, I was like, okay, well, it's possible, I guess, and I never even thought about it until I met Gary and read the book. Freeze frame, I read the book and I say, the book's been out for 10 years. And they give the book away, much like you, okay? They're a charity. And I said, more is needed. So I wrote a screenplay and I submitted it to the organization, but it was more than just a screenplay. It's what I call a global media initiative. I don't know if you can see it. It's up. It's up there.
There you go.
What's a global media initiative? All of the evidence and all of the proof of Pius being Hitler's Pope is all media echo chamber. It started with a play in 1964, and it has reverberated and echoed ever since. Even Kurtz's book, Gary can take him apart in 20 seconds. Because Gary went to the Vatican where he said he went, and Gary's got the proof that he was only there for a little while, and he didn't dig deep enough. And he just, when he got his bias confirmation of what he wanted to know, he left. Had he gone 5 more pages, it would have been, the whole thing would have been revealed to him. But that's not how you make money in the publishing business. You don't make money glorifying a pope. You make money when you kick somebody in the slats.
There you go.
All right? Gary is the only bright light beacon that I met that had anything good to say about Pope Pius. But then he could back it up. And when he talks, it's a graduate class in blasphemy, or the Jewish call it a shanda. So I like to tell people, if you're Jewish, what happened to Pope Pius is a shanda. If you're Catholic, it's blasphemous. And if you're an agnostic, it's a crime against history.
Yeah.
Everyone can play in this story.
Yes.
Rolling back a second, I decided to write this screenplay because if I wrote a movie that said, Pope Pius, and even as Gary's book is called, The Documented Truth, I think the audience would have 3 nuns and some guy didn't know where he was sitting, okay? No one's going to show up for that. So I wrote a screenplay that's an espionage film, 1964. It's got Russians, Nazis, KGB, and an American Jewish reporter who goes to try and find out the truth about Pius, and along the way becomes a target of the people who don't want the truth to come out. So it's a action adventure film that has something to do with the Pope. And to plant that seed, at the end of the film, for more information about Pope Pius, see the documentary, Hitler's Pope or Communist Hoax. That's a documentary that will blow the doors off what everybody thinks they know, present the evidence, present the proof, and have a kind of an iron cage match between Gary and anybody who says he was Hitler's Pope. Believe me, Gary can take them apart in 30 seconds because they're only working on echo. They're only working on a piece of Russian, one of the first instances of Russian disinformation ever launched into media. And unfortunately, it's still alive today. So that's why I call it a global media initiative.
Okay.
Because the problem is not with the facts. The problem is with the media and the echo chamber. So to that end, the Pave the Way Foundation has granted me the right to be the project director.
Okay, cool.
And we're looking to raise money to create worldwide public relations, the feature film, the documentary, and then enhanced internet streaming and navigation so that you and everybody who wants to can go through those 76,000 pages like it's Google. All of that together would be an effort to change the paradigm. We're seeking donations. They're tax deductible. We're a 501(c)(3). And ultimately, we will have a premiere at the Vatican. A world premiere will be at the Vatican. Our United States premiere will be at the theater, the Brooks Atkinson Theater on 47th Street, now called the Lena Horne, where the original play ran. And we've talked to and possibly can get Cardinal Dolan to do the kind of opening of it, maybe even an exorcism to get the Russian, propaganda spirits out of that theater. So a worldwide opening and a United States opening. The movie is action-packed, it's adventure, it's like All the President's Men, or 3 Days of Condor, or Spy Who Came Here from the Cold. It's a Cold War era. I'm even thinking of shooting it in black and white. It's a gripping film. And the idea is that somebody finishing the film will say, wow, what was that about the Pope? That's all we can hope for. Something about the Pope. He was a good guy, This guy found that out. And then at the end, see the documentary. Hitler's Pope, a communist hoax. Because it was a communist hoax. And it still is. So that's our goal. And if anybody is interested, if you click on that QR, you'll see 4 short videos and a YouTube playlist. And on there will be some contact information for me. And get in touch with me. In the first iteration, if anybody has a family foundation, anybody of wealth that has a family foundation who may be Jewish, because here's the thing. 1/3 of all the Jews alive on the planet today are alive because of Pope Pius. Whoa, hold on. How can you say that? At the beginning of World War II, there were 15 million Jews in the world. Today, there's 14.8. 70 years, and they still haven't gotten back to pre-World War II levels in terms of population. Now, if Pope Pius had not done what he did, 4.5 million by actuarial count, by actuarial tables, would not be alive today. So their numbers would be somewhere around 8 or 9 million. So 1 out of every 3 Jews on the planet could have, their lives, their prosperity, everything could have ended in Buchenwald or Auschwitz or any of the thousands of camps across Europe during World War II. Because of Pius, it didn't. So that's a shanda in the Jewish tradition, which means if you see a wrong and you do nothing to correct it, you are as guilty as the person that did the wrong. If you're Catholic, it's a good thing the Catholic Church did. And believe me, the Catholic Church could use some good things on their reputation.
You're right.
But more importantly, religion in total could use some good things. This is a good thing religion did. And religion, did something good. And on a worldwide basis. And again, Pius was the only world, or one of the few, I have to keep saying this, one of the few world leaders to do anything to help the Jews.
Wow.
And the one that did the most.
Wow.
And he never left the Vatican.
Wow. Thank you for all
So
that info.
if you're interested in this, it's the Pave the Way Foundation is the foundation behind it. They're a wonderful organization. And they've done some amazing things. And this is one of them. Go to the QR code. At the bottom of the playlist will be some contact information. So let me get back to what I was saying. If you know someone who's a high net worth individual, if maybe your family was saved by Pope Pius, and maybe you've gone on and God bless with health and everything and wealth, maybe you'd like to help out. Anybody can play with this. But that's the kind of thing we're looking for, donations, so we can make this thing happen and we can start resurrecting the reputation of Pope Pius the 12th, who I believe is one of the most deserving men ever of having their reputation clarified, their reputation restored. resurrected. I love resurrected because it's a religious word. So that's it. That's my mission. That's what I'm on. I believe in it totally. There's a lot of other connections and things that I could go into, but time prohibits at this point. The only other thing I'd like to say is that the Pope Pius was, when you go back to it, when he found out that Hitler wanted him dead, and he found out because priests risked their lives, one of them died, I think, risked their lives to bring him the actual order from Hitler, signed by Hitler, Auftrag 12. And that order was to the Wolf, the commandant of the SS in Rome, who was Catholic and who had a little bit of a problem with killing the Pope and then having to go back to Germany as the guy who killed the Pope. So he kind of slow rolled it to begin with. But the nail in the coffin to this whole plot to kidnap and kill Pope Pius, so that, remember that cardinal I talked about that wrote a love letter to Mein Kampf? Mm-hmm. Hitler would have installed him as Pope, Hitler's own Pope. And he would say something like, hey, come on, the Jews killed Christ. What are we worried about here? And kind of given Hitler a pass if Pius was dead. But Pius, again, he was brilliant and he was a statesman, an ambassador. He told us, this is great. He wrote his resignation letter. He wrote a letter of resignation. And he put it on his desk. He said, listen, guys, he didn't say it like this because I'm from the Bronx. He wasn't. But he says, listen, guys, the Germans come in here. This letter's effective. You go to Portugal. We know somebody there. You go to Portugal. You set up the Vatican in exile, elect a new pope. And all Hitler will capture is Eugenio Pacelli, citizen of Rome.
Wow.
And when that word got out to commandant of the SS, it was like, game over. What are we going to do? He outsmarted even his plot to kill him. I mean, if you put that in context, it's one of the biggest wows in history. And it's all being plastered over and painted over with, oh yeah, he was Hitler's Pope, and people move on. So that's the mission. That's what I'm on. And anybody who wants to help, God bless you. Oh, can I say one last thing? We have
Go
one
ahead.
more minute?
Yep.
Anybody ever hear of Schindler's List?
Of course.
Of course, right. Schindler's List. Great movie. Steven Spielberg's ultimate testimonial movie, I guess. It's something he wanted to do all his life. Schindler saved 1,200 Jews. Mm-hmm. God bless him. He was a Nazi, but he managed to help 1,200 Jews.
I know where you're going with this. Go ahead.
Somebody wrote a book about Schindler, and then somebody made a movie. And everybody in the world knows Schindler
He's a hero.
saved Jews.
1,200.
Right. And Pope Pius, nearly 1,830,000 in the first iteration. 950,000 is the new numbers coming out by our researchers. If that's true, that's 50,000 short of 1 million. So I'm going to say 1 million. All he got was a crummy play. All he got was a crummy movie.
All right.
That just devastated his reputation.
Wow.
So think about that.
I'm
It's
going
all
to be.
Media. It's
I'm going
all
to be.
media.
And I'm
that's
going
why
to be
we're
talking about it too.
Global Media Initiative.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Schindler's List, the world knows, right? You're right.
Yeah.
I knew you. Wow. All right. I want to read a little bit, just a little bit from
Please do.
one of my poems, because this one's very long. I'm not reading the whole thing. This one's my Jesus poem, and I thought it would be appropriate.
Okay.
I'm not ashamed to proclaim his name. I'm not ashamed. It's God I claim. The world stirs hate, but God stirs love. The world's lost faith. It's found up above. The world says God's a myth. The world says God is fake. God says I'm really here. God says I'm no mistake. The lost are broken. The broken are lost. Condemning your soul, not sparing the cost. God says, listen, I'm here for you. Just come to me. I'll make you new. You laugh at him and curse his name. You dance with evil in this war game. When Jesus said it is finished, they took him off that cross. He rose from the dead so your soul wasn't lost. He no longer dangles on the cross from that day. He's free from that cross. Jesus now made the way. We wear a cross because we're his kid, to be reminded what this man did. Come as you are and don't pretend. He knows all things beginning to end. I'm skipping around for reasons. I cried out one night, whoever's out there, please show me the truth. Does anyone care? It was then that I heard him as clear as could be. I'm here and I care. I made you for me. You are not alone. I will lead the way. I'll never leave you. Your price I did pay. I'll protect you and guide you as long as you want. Tell me your sorrows. I'm your confidant. I'm your heavenly father. You're my earthly kid. There was a price on you to the highest of bid. It was then that I marked you and said you were mine. I knew at that moment you were made to shine. I'll never put rules on the way you should live. I gave you free will from my life I did give. You have the choice. The choice is yours. There are the choices behind the doors. Each one is distant. One choice is distant and one will bring pain. One choice is closer and it will bring gain. The cross I was nailed to for you. I was nailed, not in religion's name, but it was you that I knew. Self-righteous will pay, trust me on this. If they ever judge you, them I'll dismiss. Everyone sins, that's why I came. No one is better than you in my name. I can't come to you till you come to me. Let me in. I'll open my doors and I'll cleanse your sin. Father God, I do thank you for sending your son to shed his blood for me. Then he said it was done. He said it is finished. Now listen to me. He always said that it was Jesus who would now set you free. Ask him to take over because you are way too weak. I promise strength he'll give you if only Jesus you seek. All that was written is being played out. Will you be ready or will you have doubt? Will you be ready the day he returns or left behind to feel the burns? My prayer is this, that you take heed to know that to know the reason Jesus did bleed. The time is near, it really is. Will you be ready to say you're his? I hope everybody listens to a little bit of that poem.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you. You know, yes, I'm a Christian, but we all have to have hope in something, right? You know, and I like to think, because I feel like that was God, that was Jesus that came to me that night. And, you know, I gave it to him. But he'll never impose on you guys. So I hear a lot, like people will message me and say, well, what about this? And what about the kids that are suffering? What about this? And I tell everybody, he gave us free will. And I would never not want to have that, right? But along with free will comes our choices, and our choices come consequences. So he'll never impose himself on you. So once you're ready to say, all right, Lord, I'm yours, things can change. Trust me on this. Trust me, I shouldn't be here today. Okay, guys? And I did go to the Vatican with my dad. He wanted to take me to Italy, where he was from, and it was beautiful. And nice. I'll cherish that trip. And we went to Israel together, me and my dad, to see where Jesus walked. It was amazing. And he's gone now. You know, he's in heaven. But I want to thank you, Tom, because I didn't know anything, okay, that you were talking about, and I'm glad you enlightened me on that. And, you know, Schindler's List, bringing that up, man. Now I'm going to be talking about this, and I'm going to be talking about you. And wow, that's all I could say about that, okay? Wow. And it's all in the media. It's all in marketing. It's all in, yes, absolutely.
100%. And that was my trade for 40 years, so I know it.
100%. There you go. So, Tom, I just want to say thank you for honoring me today with this interview and the one prior with your other book about JFK. Guys, please go to my page, the Geri Petito Show YouTube channel. Both of these shows are there. Please, please, please check them out. Okay, get in touch with this guy. Before we end, producer, I just want you to tell everybody one more time how to get your books and how to get in touch with you.
Okay, well, the my email is a good way to get to me, is tom@author.nyc, not .com, .nyc, tom@author.nyc. The Pave the Way Foundation is ptwf.org. If you want to look at their great work and what they do, that's Gary and his wife's wonderful organization. And the people that are really responsible for what I'm telling you, okay? I'm just a parrot telling you what they have instructed me to. My books and everything are available on Amazon. Once you know my name, Avitabile, Avitabile, you can find it. I'm sure it's on the screen. But this time right now, it belongs to this idea of resurrecting Pope Pius XII, and I wouldn't want anything else in my life to overshadow that, because I really feel like, I guess you feel, Geri, that you're on a path, and this is my path, and it's kind of lonely sometimes on the path, but then you find wonderful souls and people who just give you a cheer or help you out or donate. And at that point, you're on the right track. So thank you for being a part of my path. And I'll keep you informed of what's going on. And anybody out there who feels the way I feel about this, or even close, or if you're Jewish and you've survived because of Pope Pius, we could use all the help we could get in changing the paradigm of the world, of a man who was blasphemed, a man whose character was assassinated 6 years after his death, for the purpose of communist takeover of the Soviet Union's outer regions. With that, God bless you. Thank you very much. I look forward to chatting with you again.
Tom, thank you from the bottom of my heart. You honored me today with both of these interviews. You're amazing. God had his hand in this today, trust me. I want everybody to please share my YouTube videos of this guy, the 2 shows I did today. Please, please, please share them and get in touch with this guy. Okay, producer, take us out. Thank you, Tom.
Ladies and gentlemen, Geri Petito.
I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Geri Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Loves the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.
When you don't know just what to do.
Just what to do, just what to do.
If what you're feeling is really true.
Is really true, is it really true?
Just keep your ideas safe and sound.
Safe and sound, safe and sound.
That's exactly how change is found.